All right, I have 2 minutes after, so we'll go ahead and start. For those that don't know me, my name is Michael Hauck. I serve as the Chief People and Experience Officer at congruentX, and we've been hosting kind of a series of these webinars, really where we talk about, from a business perspective, ways to increase adoption and ways to increase value of your investment in the stack, and in this case, the stack being Microsoft Dynamics and the Power Platform. Not that you can't apply it to other solutions, but we'll talk about that again later. And so I've got a guest today, as I usually do. Eyal, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me today. My name is Eyal Orgil. I'm the CRO and I'm a co-founder at DealHub. DealHub started off about 10 years ago as a CPQ, that's configure, price, quote, solution provider. We've since expanded the functionality of the solution so we can offer a lot more capabilities as part of building out a quote to build out your contract. If you have to be in a subscription business, we can manage your subscriptions. And we also have a billing solution as well. It's all an integrated solution available for customers.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Yeah, so I think your introduction alone is a good segue, right? Again, when we think about our, as a Microsoft Dynamics implementation partner, when we think about our partners and the independent software vendors or ISVs that we recommend to our clients and prospects, the idea here is, there's a gap in the solution from Microsoft, and yeah, there may be an ability to, custom create a solution for that gap, but we're big believers in buy versus build where it makes sense. And so I'd like to talk a little bit more about, the gaps that you and your solution fill, and kind of, how you see your clients getting value out of their investment in your solution, and any success stories that you want to talk about for a few minutes, just to educate the audience who may not be familiar with the particular solution, and kind of really how you all work to increase the value of their investment.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So basically, if I'll start off with breaking out the product sort of CPQ, the idea of why you want to have a solution to go and configure your products. Out of the box in a CRM, you've got a product catalog, you've got the ability to pick products, you can maybe put a price or a discount to it, but it sort of stops there, and that's really not enough. You will need to, at times, to configure the right products. There's optional products that go together, there's multiple products. There's different tier levels of products that you need. So there's a lot of technicality sometimes in how you put your products together, things that you might have to train your team to go and do. And then they're what causes the end cause of having them being the configurator themselves as the human being is we make mistakes, we forget things, or we go and be creative as salespeople and say, hey, I can just put any kind of discount and I want it. So really what we want to do is help build a configuration of a product. We want to help price it correctly, allow you to put the discounting, put any governance around that as well. So you may need approval processes, not to go overboard, but someone may have to approve certain configurations go together. Someone may have to approve certain discount levels that have to go on to that. And that's sort of one aspect of it. How do I build the quote? From there, though, you've also got how are you going to present it to your customer? You want to present it in a nice branded document. Your organizations typically spend a lot of money making sure they look really good on their website and all that, but you don't want the document going out just being a piece of paper, a Word document being printed out any old way. And again, what's the content on that? Has it been vetted? Are you putting the right way to represent your brand? So as part of putting together a proposal, then you can put the right documentation together with that. So generate a Word or a PDF document that you want. We took it one step further and said, well, we're now into 2024. It's the digital world these days. We can share content as a Word or PDF document, but probably what we want to do is start engaging with our customers and share content in a digital format. Meaning if I send a proposal to a customer, why does it just have to be that pricing page? Why don't I put a short video that explains my product or services, maybe a customer testimonial, some more information about the product, so that the customer really has a great picture of what I'm trying to provide them. And there may be multiple stakeholders that need to get that. So why limit that to just one person that gets it and hope that they forward it to others? Let's allow others to come in, and basically what we've created is a virtual conference room. So now, as we're all sitting together in a conference right now through video, we'd be sitting in a conference sort of room, being able to share content, sharing all kinds of different content with each other, chatting back and forth, and of course have the ability to add more content in online form so we can fill in maybe the billing or shipping information, and then even electronically sign off in one sort of encased environment that we have that we're sharing digitally with our customers. So that's, and those are sort of the key points I've touched on where you have the pain points that you're just not going to get out of a CRM out of the box. But let me pause there and you can ask more.
Well, I want to elaborate a little bit on that, because what I see, and we're working with a couple clients today, and we're working on a joint opportunity today, right? Is to your point, historically, there's been a lot of documents sent back and forth, and people are worried about versions, and then I send it and they share it, and then you get into the whole storage space issue, right? And do I want that stuff stored inside my CRM system and taking up space that I'm paying for, and all of those kind of things? And so, I think the concept of having that virtual deal room, if you will, right, where all of those documents are stored, and it's just giving people access to that room to see things and make sure we're all looking at the same thing. I think that's really important, and people may not necessarily view that as an adoption thing or a value thing, but from a process perspective, I think it's a much better process than what many organizations that we bump into have done historically, where they're just sending documents back and forth and worrying about storage and all those kind of things. So I kind of wanted to reinforce that concept a little bit for the audience to make sure that they understand. The other thing that I wanted to touch upon was a little bit, if we think about your particular solution, right? Your solution works with multiple CRMs, right? Obviously we're talking about Dynamics. We're a Microsoft partner, right? But it works with Salesforce.
Works with Salesforce, works with HubSpot, and we actually have a lot of other CRMs and ERPs that utilize our API. They get the exact same functionality. They're accessing the exact same system, just through a different access capability that they have, whether we built a connector to it or whether they're building their own.
You already answered my next question, right? Is I asked about CRM and you mentioned ERP, right? So let's talk about the ERP side of things a little bit, just for a second, to make people understand that this isn't just a sales initiative, right? It doesn't stop at the sale. Obviously, we're talking about quotes and proposals and things like that, but talk a little bit about, your solution, once the customer signs that agreement, kind of high level. We don't need to get technical, but what happens then?
Well, going back just to where I said before, where people are just building up quotes in a Word document, that's great if that's all you would need to do it, but that information has to get back into back-end processing systems. There's delivery system, there's invoicing, there's revenue recognitions, a whole host of different systems. Some are connected, some maybe not. Probably most organizations trying to work to get a nice data flow so it all connects together. So let's just take an example. I'm sending some construction equipment, but I'm sending it to two different sites. Well, I want to know which of the line items are going to go on that bill of material to one site, which is going to another. So as part of putting together a quote, I can put a lot of metadata on that line. So that information could be, for example, where am I shipping the specific items out to, or how am I recognizing revenue for specific items, because different items get different recognition for the rep based off of the product line that they're being sold. So as part of building out a quote, we're capturing a lot of information. This is something DealHub does very well because of the way we go through our quoting process by asking a lot of questions or capturing a lot of information as we're building it. We're attaching that metadata onto the line, and then it's going back into the CRM, and then that's getting pushed into your other systems. It could be to your ERP, order fulfillment systems, whatever it says, even BI systems. What was quoted, how was it quoted, under what conditions, what pricing, what discounts, and so forth. So a lot of the data is super key to have for that back-end processing. Really smooths it out and make sure that you have a unified, layer of data going back into your systems.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm going to stay on that for a second, right? Because I literally, I've got clients I'm working with currently. I've got clients I've working on historically where, their products, if you will, and in some cases I'll say their systems that they're selling are systems. It's not a singular product. And so when you get into that CPQ aspect and actually the configuration, it's amazing to me. It's not surprising at all, but it's amazing to me, as you said, in 2024, that I still see a lot of systems, a lot of companies that don't really have a true quoting system. They're still using Excel, and they have got an Excel template or something else where they're creating that quote. And to some extent, I almost feel like in certain organizations, they feel like that quoting tool or engine, whatever you want to call it, that they have is kind of their secret sauce. And it always, from an outside looking in, it always kind of amazes me. It's like, really, that's what you want your salespeople to focus on or your engineers to focus on? Like, can it be better? And so I want to talk a little bit more about, because one of the challenges whenever I talk to those clients and we start talking about, well, what if we replace your Excel quoting tool with a system like DealHub? And they immediately go, oh, it's too complex, right? That you're not going to be able to do it or whatever. And so I I'd like to talk again high level about kind of what that process looks like, and without naming names, maybe some specific examples of some of the more complex quoting solutions that you guys have delivered, for an industry or whatever kind of thing, just to help people understand that it's, while there's a lot of work obviously in that setup, that it's not so much a complexity thing as it is just going through the effort of identifying the inputs and the parameters that have to go into creating a quote and how your tool accomplishes that.
Right. Well, it's actually an interesting question because you said the word complexity. The number of customers that I've talked to that said they're complex and they were like 3 or 4 products, but to them in their world, they're very complex. Then there's those others with the tens of thousands of products or SKUs. There's those that have 3 or 4 products and really are complex, but whether they made themselves complex or whether just the way they go through their processes. We've had customers that are in the software business with subscriptions, but they have ramp periods and peak periods and only for certain amounts of times. And these things, change a lot. And those can become really complex. How do you start calculating? And especially if you're looking software, how do you calculate your ARR when you have these peaks and all that? It becomes very complex. On the other hand, manufacturing, you may have tens of thousands of products. How do I limit that down to just salespeople picking the right products? So first and foremost, complexity is always in the eyes of the customer, and that's fine. And we understand that when we come into a project, we come in, we want to learn your business, understand it, and see if there's even ways that we can simplify that for you, because many times they have made themselves more complex. There's also an issue that a lot of times things become more complex because of the tools that you're using. They simply don't allow you to simplify the process. So that's something that we look at as well. So we're going to come in, when we come into a project, we're going to talk to the customer, see what they're doing, try to bring a lot of experience of what we have. Let me know if I'm answering it, because I'm sort of maybe gone off on a bit of a tangent, but definitely bring me back online. But it's important to understand what the customer is trying to do, what they're trying to get across, and the different stakeholders involved. What the salesperson needs is one thing, what their managers need to see, whether it's for approvals, is another thing, what the back-end processing, as we talked about, needs to see is a different thing, and all those things have to be taken into account when putting the system together.
No, I think, the beauty of what you just said to me is, for the folks that are on the call today that are my current clients or folks that we're talking to now, they hear us at congruentX all the time talk about value and talk about how, the idea of technology is to support us as people. And so if you've got a broken process because of your system, it's not a system problem, it's a process problem, and we should fix the process and then fix the system to support it. And without really me prompting, right, this is why, we consider you guys to be a strategic partner, and hopefully vice versa, is that we're like-minded in terms of the idea of the solution is to support the people that are using it and to create the process that works for your business, not to create the process that works for the system. And I think in what you just said hopefully makes that clear to the audience, as to the fact that we're like-minded in our approach and how you guys do that, and how it really isn't just about implementing your solution. It's about where are there opportunities to improve the business and get more value and get a better result. So thank you for that. You talked about, companies with a few SKUs and companies with not a few SKUs, with thousands upon thousands of SKUs, and products versus services and everything else. Talk a little bit about, and I'm going to use generic terms. I'll say I'm going to tee up a little bit in terms of kits or bundles or systems or whatever, and how, how your system handles that. Is if I'm a company that makes electrical or mechanical switching stations and there's lots of components in it or something like that, how does your solution work for those kind of organizations?
Okay, definitely can address all those different situations. Usually when someone talks to me about having some sort of package or bundle, I always try to ask them, first of all, what does that mean to you? Because sometimes that means I want to sell a bundle to a customer where I really want to show them 10 different product lines, but I just want to pick one item and say, this is what I want, and then it gives me 10 different line items, because they want a line-by-line quote sent out to them. Sometimes they only want to see one line item, but super important, back into the ERP or our CRM and then pushing to the ERP, we need to break that out into bill of materials. So DealHub can do that as well, whether we sync back that one line and then your ERP is going to break out the bill of materials, or whether we will actually sync that back. So the customer-facing experience, going back to what I said a moment ago, depending on what the needs are of each of the different players, the customer is one of those as well. What do they need to see? It may just be that one line that they need to see, and then we'll sync back to the CRM, the multiple lines that make up that bill of materials. Now, what we've also done is made it possible, knowing that there's different situations where you're having sort of bundles. You could have like a fixed bundle saying these are the products that are always included with it. you may have a bundle that becomes a little dynamic where sometimes you want to add some items, but you want to have that locked in or guardrails of what are the products you can add, so you can have a bundle like that. And we actually allow what some organizations want their salespeople to have is a completely dynamic bundle, meaning they can, or ad hoc. Salespeople can just simply go grab a bunch of products together, put it and display it as one line item in the quote, explain and have it automatically explain what's in that line item, but back into the CRM. CRM again is that bill of materials. So you have it. So we can handle it different ways. It's all going to be based on what is the actual need for the customer and what's the need for syncing back into the CRM for your back end processing. And there's different ways that we can address that.
Awesome. Thank you. I think we're at a point, I like to try and keep these short. So what I'm going to do is I'll give the audience a chance. If anybody wants to come off mute and ask a question, that's fine. Or if you just want to type your question in the chat, if you have a question, I'll say either one of us, but really, today is about DealHub and about their product and their solutions. And so if based on the conversation that we've had this morning, if any of you have questions that you'd like to get clarification on or whatever, by all means, go ahead and come off mute and ask it or type it in the chat. And if not, then I really only have one or two more questions for Eyal, and I'll let him get back to his evening. I don't see any questions. Okay.
I'll try one. So first, thank you very much for the session. This is Kalen.
Sure.
I really appreciate this session and no slides. This is refreshing, I have to say. No slides actually made me pay attention and focus on the speaker. So thank you, Hal. Can you talk a little bit about how this integrates with the implementation process specifically? Like, how do you work with the Salesforce implementers, and in general, how fast it is, how difficult it is to sync, etc.?
Thanks, Kalen, for the question. If you're referring to how fast the integration is with the CRM, first of all, there's connectors that are basically a couple clicks and wait the 10, 15 minutes while the systems do their thing in the background and the systems are fully connected. In terms of a project itself, projects can be very quick and they can take a bit longer depending on the complexity. We do projects that are very quick, oftentimes in a matter of weeks, working whether we're doing it, whether we're working with a partner like congruentX who are doing that implementation. They can be quite quick to do it. Just a note on that and why that is because we work in a configuration environment. We don't do any coding at all. We've built all the functionality and continue to add more functionality all the time into the platform. And it makes it much easier to go and use business type logic to go and configure. And if that seems strange that you could actually do it, we've got customers that are super complex and we can do it all through the logic. We've built the functionality already into it. So you can simply do that drag and drop or that plug and play sort of functionality that you need. Go set that up. So hopefully I'm answering the question, but please, feel free to ask further on this. But the configurations are quite relatively simple, I would say, to put together. Really designed for business type users, also for reasoning that we know that things change all the time. And if you're writing code, you have to go back and try to rewrite that code, and that's a lot of work to do it. And that was the goal of having a configured environment. So hopefully I've come close to answering what you're asking for.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions this morning that we can answer? Again, either come off mute or if you're not in a position, go ahead and type it in the chat. Okay, if not, or while we're waiting, I think the follow-up would be for anybody in the audience or anybody who listens to the recording after the fact, where can they learn more about you and the solution and kind of the company and the product and your roadmap and everything that you're doing?
Well, definitely they can check out our website, DealHub.io. You can definitely reach out to me. You should see my name on here, Eyal.Orgil at DealHub.io. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or by email. Ask the questions you want. We'll put you together with the right account execs or the technical people and be able to support you in whatever requirements you have.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. If nobody has any other questions, as I said, I like to keep these short so people can listen to the recordings after the fact and hopefully, as Kalen did, hear enough to maybe get a question or have a question. More importantly, to understand, how your organization adds value and can help CRM systems be better for businesses. So if nobody has anything else, we'll wrap it up and let everybody get back to their day. I just want to thank you for your time and insight. Appreciate it. And obviously the partnership, and look forward to talking again in the future.
All right. Thank you. And thank you everybody for joining today.
Thanks all. Have a great day.